I'm Rosalie Schaefer, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Manatee County, I welcome you to our hot topic today. But before we get started, I'd like to recognize elected officials in our audience. We have Karen Carpenter, she's on the school board. And we have one of our guests, Carolyn Mason, who's a commissioner from Sarasota County. Let's see, did I miss anybody? Any other elected officials? You never know when they're going to sneak in here without my name. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about a problem that is growing. It's very difficult to solve. It's homelessness. For many people, home is a place that they cannot afford. For a long time, this was thought to be a problem mainly of adult males, many with addictions. But the face of homelessness is changing. Now women and children, families, are increasingly asking for help. What can be done to help these citizens in need? We are very pleased to have with us today experts who are very well versed in this subject. Adele Aroser, Executive Director of Turning Points and the One Stop Center. Julia Showers, Program Director of the Salvation Army of Manatee County. And Sarasota County Commissioner Carolyn Mason. She's going to discuss how Sarasota is dealing with this issue and the recommendations of a national study that was done there. After the presentations, we will invite questions from the audience. When we reach that point, please use the microphone on the floor for your question and state your name. Okay, without further ado, we have a lot of ground to cover, so we may as well get started right now. Ms. Aroser?
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you asked me to be here today to talk about this because this is one of the major challenges facing our community. There are a lot of challenges that we have. I was just telling somebody at the front door, when you get those surveys that come to your house and they have 20 things that are important issues to you and prioritize them, it's very hard to prioritize some of them because they're all very important. But this is one that has so many different things connected to it that I think it really does need to be a priority in our community. So in order to tell you, I was asked to talk about the needs and the trends of the homeless population, and what I did was, hopefully most of you or all of you got this handout, which gave you the statistics for the Bill Galvano One Stop Center this last year. And the One Stop Center is just one of many organizations in the county that sees people who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless. So I thought this would give you a really good idea about who are those people who are homeless, who are we talking about? And I think one of the major problems I have with homelessness is labeling people as homeless, because once you label somebody as something, they somehow become different, and so then you can treat them differently. But I'd like to just give you some idea of who these people are, because they really are just your friends, your neighbors, your aunts, your uncles, your sons, your daughters. And as we go forward, we're going to see that more of them are people that are related to you, because there are some economic factors in the community that are making it very, very difficult right now for everyone to be able to be housed. So if you haven't got one of these, I just want to show you some of the highlights. On the first page, it gives you that last year at the Bill Galvano One Stop Center, we had 9,647 people come through there, and not all of these are homeless, but if you look at the next line, you'll see that 4,939 of them were literally homeless. Literally homeless means that they were living in a hotel, they were coming from a shelter, they had no place else to stay, they were living on the streets, they were living in a place that was not intended to be inhabited by a human being. So that's a little bit more than half of our people were literally homeless. And of those, we had 556 of them that were veterans. And of the veterans that came in, 333 of them were literally homeless. So that's a quick snapshot of we have in Manatee County, and that's just our agency. Other agencies would have different demographics, but if you'll also see just what Rosalie said is absolutely true. I'll be 11 years in this organization in November in 2004, and when I started, probably 95% of the people we saw were men. And as things have started to change in the last 2 years, we have seen that the numbers show that almost half of the people now that we see coming in for services are women, and most of them have children. So as you can see on here, 0 to 5, 782 came in this last year, 6 to 11, 693, 12 to 15, 398, and then you see this big jump, 16 to 24. 16 to 24, again, one of those niche homeless groups that we have are kids who are homeless. They're runaways, they're aged out of foster care, they have nowhere to go, and we really don't have any programs for them anymore in Manatee County. We used to have a program run by Manatee Children's Services for the kids 16 to 24 that helped them to get into housing, but they lost their grant funding, and now we don't really have a group that's focusing on that age group anymore. So men, you can see in this it was 49%, females were 47%, and then some data isn't entered, and that's usually because the person doesn't want to give that information. So page 2 just gives you an idea of what kind of ethnicity and race we're looking at. I think the interesting thing here is out of those clients that we had, out of the 9,600, 1,339 of them, 13% were disabled. That means that they have a disability and they may or may not be getting services for disabilities. And the income is, I have to explain, because it says on here household income level, very low, low, moderate, above moderate, and then data not entered. The data not entered is usually from the open door side because that's not one of the things that they have to, a box that they have to check. So you can just add all of those, that 52% up into the very low. So that means that you've got about 85% of the people who are coming in who are very low income. And if you're considering that and you're thinking, homelessness, what are the causes of homelessness? What are the trends? Well, if you've got 85% of the people coming in who are very low income, it's pretty hard for them to find housing. It's pretty hard for them to find a way to be able to survive. And when you talk about the needs for these people, that is the need. How do we survive in Manatee County on an income of disability, on an income of low income being minimum wage, $8 an hour, $10 an hour, even $12 an hour, isn't it? When the studies show that you need $16 to $17 an hour for a single person to be able to make it in Manatee County without spending more than 30% of your income on your housing. So you can see, and I guess this is also for those of you who are, there's been a lot of data out there, especially with the United Way study, the ALICE report, the Asset Limited Income Constrained Employed report, showing that 30% of the people in Manatee County are at risk of being homeless. 13% of them are at poverty or below, so they really are either homeless or at risk of it. So we're looking at, conservatively, almost half of our population in Manatee County is having trouble. This is a huge challenge, and it's a challenge that we need to start thinking about. We should have started thinking about 10, 12, 14, 20 years ago when we had the options which we don't have available anymore. Housing. The reason somebody's homeless is because they can't find housing that's affordable for them. So what is Manatee County doing about building affordable housing? Can anybody tell me? Thank you. We don't seem to have a plan that actually talks about what can we do for income-constrained households. This is something we can't kick down the road anymore. You are seeing thousands and thousands of developments being approved in Manatee County, and there is no affordable housing requirement attached to those. So you're looking at, it's got to be somebody coming from outside of the county because that half of the county can't afford that housing. So where can they live? This is the biggest challenge that we have. And right now, when you're talking about trends, I would also say a major trend that we're seeing is that a lot of the people who thought they had enough money saved for their retirement, and the Great Recession came along and used up a lot of their savings, they're starting to realize they don't have enough. And we're getting more and more inquiries from people who are 65 and above. And you're going to see, as that baby boomer population ages, that you're going to see more and more people needing some kind of housing for single adults. I think many of you have already been touched by that in this room, and it's going to be a bigger challenge as we go down the road and more people are starting to run out of their savings in their retirement. So this is another major challenge. I just wanted to give you an idea when we talk about housing, and I want to put a face to some of these people that we're talking about who come in for services, because I think a lot of times people say, those people. And it's not those people, it's you and you and you. These are some of we had a report we just had to do for one of our funding agencies, and I just wanted to read a couple of these, give you an idea of the kinds of people that we're helping. Max and Jane came in to us for assistance. Max had to stop working due to a car accident he was in. His wife became unemployed as well and had just started a new job, but now they were looking at eviction. So the funds that we gave them were used to help them stay out of homelessness because we were able to help them avoid eviction. A couple other people came in to Turning Points for assistance that were homeless and staying with a friend temporarily. They're both disabled, and their Social Security benefits are their only source of income. These funds were used to assist the family with obtaining a new home because their old home was a health hazard. And that's one other thing that we find as we have several programs this last fiscal year that are aimed at people who are chronically homeless or trying to get people who have a low income into housing, are facing unemployment, and we can help them with more than 1 month of housing, so it gives them some stability and gives them a base to save some money so that they can have a good place to start from. Last year, this program, we have what's called ESG, Emergency Shelter Grant Funds, from both the county and the city of Bradenton. But in the city of Bradenton, we could not spend the money. We had to give back around $30,000 because people in the city of Bradenton could not find landlords that would be willing to rent to them at an affordable price. We can't put somebody into housing at $1,200 a month if they can only afford $800 a month. We couldn't even give the money away. That's how bad the housing situation is. Here's another one. Marilyn was referred to 211 as an emergency from the school district. She's the grandmother and caretaker of her 3 grandchildren, which she received emergency custody of, and she fell behind due to the increased expenses. Her water bill fell behind due to the expense of getting the children ready for school. She wasn't used to having so many showers, and her water was cut off on both her and the children. These funds were used to pay the past due water balance to turn the water back on for the family. Kenneth and Virginia came to Turning Points for assistance because they were homeless and staying with family temporarily. They were unemployed, and Karen, or I can't remember what her name, just started a new job. The funds were used to secure an affordable home for the family, and this is probably the most recurring scenario that we see. People have lost their jobs, they've got a new job, but they can't get ahead to get into housing. So homelessness is both a prevention issue, which we all want to focus on the most because that's how it's most cost effective, it's most beneficial for people not to have to move but stay in your housing. But when you do have somebody that's evicted, then it's really, really tough and more expensive for them to find housing, find a landlord, first, last, and utility deposits to get in. It's very expensive. So these are just a few of the scenarios I wanted to bring to your attention. I hope that you have some great questions for me. I'd love to talk all day long about this, But I really want the community just to be aware that there are so many causes of homelessness. There's divorce, there's addiction, there's low income, and in this situation that we're in right now in Manatee County and actually throughout the nation, a lot of it is because of poor planning for income restricted housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Adele. I concur with everything she said, but I have a little bit to share with you. One of the things at the Salvation Army that we do is that we don't like that word homelessness either, so we refer to them as our neighbors in need, because at some point in life they could have been your neighbor, and so we want to see what we can do to help our neighbors in need. At the Salvation Army, you'll know one of the things that we have is we have a family shelter for women and children. I will tell you that there are only 6 rooms in that shelter, and 5 of those rooms are for families, and 1 of them is for single women, and we can only accommodate 6 single women. And so in order to accommodate the amount of homelessness that we have, I can tell you for the months of June, July, and August, we had an average of 43 women and children sleeping on the floor in that shelter, because there are people who showed up at 6 o'clock and said, I have nowhere else to go, I need a place to sleep tonight. And the only room that we have is a mat on the floor. So you can see that for homeless women and children, there are not a lot of options in Manatee County and a lot of places for them to go. And I'll be honest with you, women and children are most important. So we have had to turn away single women because we want those children into shelter. We don't want those children sleeping in a car or under a tree. You'd be amazed at, and Adele can share with you too, the amount of families that sleep in their cars, and then they get their kids ready in the car and take them to school each day. So we definitely have a need in Manatee County for housing. I was recently a part of a group that it was said that we've got to quit calling it affordable housing, because apparently other people's definition of affordable housing is not the same as ours. As Adele mentioned, there are a lot of communities building, and they say, these developers are saying, but these are only $100,000 homes. They're affordable. Well, they might be affordable to the people you're trying to attract, but they're not affordable to the people whom we serve that only get $500 a month in Social Security. So we need to come up with, I think we need to come up with a name for housing that we can piggyback on to tell people this is the kind of housing that we're looking for those who are in need, because there is not affordable housing here in Manatee County. In our men's shelter, we do have a lot more room. We have 120 beds, but we'll let you know that in the month of September, the unduplicated amount of men who stayed in our shelter was 2,700 men. So that's nights of beds. So for instance, on the 1st, there were 84 men who just showed up and said, I need to stay the night. On the 4th, there were 82 men. So we count that as nights of lodging. Now, it could be that it's the same man every night. So we're helping the same person. So it does seem like a lot when we count it in nights of lodging. Also, inside of the men's lodge, we have a program, what we call the ARC. The Salvation Army has an adult rehabilitation center in St. Petersburg. And what we do is we hold usually up to 7 men. We hold them at our facility here until there's a bed available for them to go to St. Petersburg. And they go to St. Petersburg, they can go through the adult rehabilitation center at no cost to them. And you'll note that it's been a heightened awareness about even the heroin epidemic that we faced in our county. We've even had a man die in our parking lot because of overdose on heroin. There is a huge need as well in Manatee County for those who have drug addictions and mental illness. Mental illness in a lot of our homeless people, there's really no place for them to go in Manatee County. And so you have to think about we do have places where they're given medicine and they do great, and then they're released back out on the street with no home to go to. And then what do? They don't continue taking their medicine. They're back again in that mental illness state of mind where they might not even know what they're doing or what they're saying, might even be doing harm to themselves. And that's a huge concern for us. We see it almost every single day. It's heartbreaking to think that could be my brother, or that could be my grandfather, or that could just be my friend, or that could be my son in that particular situation. So that's also a need for us here in Manatee County. We also have 4 beds now for what we call post-release. Those are for people who are coming out of prison who need a place to stay so they can get reacclimated back into society. Some people think it's kind of funny if we have someone who comes from being in prison from 30 years and someone says, go look for a job. Well, you don't just go look for a job anymore. You have to get on the computer, and they don't even begin to understand that. And so we have to get them reacclimated back into society. Even the cell phone is kind of foreign to them. So we have to get them acclimated back to society. We have a veterans program. We can hold up to 19 veterans. That's a 30-day program because the veterans are coming in. The Veterans Administration is coming in, meeting with those clients as well, and they're trying desperately to get them into housing. And then we have what we call we call our Turning Points program, which is where we want men to take a turn who say, I want to get a job, I want to make a difference, I want to turn my life around. And so we have 10 men in that particular program. So they're working really hard. They're meeting with a case manager. They have a case plan. They're trying to desperately get a job, save money so that they can move out on their own. And then we have what we call our Overnight Plus program, which is, again, a lot of what Adele talked about, is these are about 23 men who basically live at the Salvation Army. And they live at the Salvation Army because they get maybe $500 or a little bit more in Social Security benefits. Where else can you live off of that? If they didn't live at the Salvation Army, they would be on the streets as well. So at the Salvation Army, they can live there. They can, have 3 meals a day there. So they have chosen to stay at the Salvation Army. We try our very best to encourage them to move on, but again, it's very difficult. We even encourage them to get a buddy system, and maybe if you move out with a friend, and sometimes those situations work out pretty good, and sometimes they don't. So we encourage them to move out. We even with our families, like Adele said, it's really sad because you have a mom with 3 kids who is working a job making $10 an hour. That is not enough money to support her and her children. There are a lot of things that encompass that have gotten us to where we are now. We can even talk about education, that some of these women aren't quite educated enough to be able to get a better job to support their family. And so there's just so many things that encompass what it is that we can help with. But the number one thing, again, is that there is not affordable housing for people. And it's not for working people, I should say. People who are working, who are making the $10 an hour. And then it becomes even more difficult when you add children into the mix, because once you think about child care and you think about if a mom can only get a job at night, what does she do? What does she do with her children? Does she choose to put them in a nighttime daycare and never see her kids? So there are a lot of things, but the most important thing, I agree with Adele, that we're facing in Manatee County is there's not really housing for those who are working. So if you have any questions, because we have a lot of other things we do as well. We do rental assistance and the electric, and we feel like that it's it is actually more expensive for people to come into shelter than it is to keep them housed. So we try to do our best to keep people housed as much as possible so that we can use those dollars that we're given for the best, for doing the most good.
Well, good afternoon. You know, I have to agree with both speakers before me that housing is a challenge for this population. I too want to call it something different than affordable housing because it's affordable for whom? Is the question. But some of the things we're doing in Sarasota County, now remember I'm a county commissioner, not Sarasota City, which is different. And before I start, I want to let you know that at one time I worked for the Salvation Army in Sarasota, doing intake in the shelter in the evenings and on weekends. I've worked for Habitat for Humanity, doing their recruitment of homeowners, and you know Habitat is the bank so that you're always in touch with those homeowners. I've worked for Goodwill Industries and Girls Incorporated, so I've kind of been around the not-for-profit world prior to my career as an elected official. But some of the things we're doing in Sarasota County, we 2 years ago hired a consultant, Dr. Robert Marbut, to look at our homeless situation in Sarasota County and give us some ideas on how we can do things differently, because we had been working on the issue and kind of getting nowhere real fast. We don't have a one-stop in Sarasota, but we do have the Resurrection House, which is a small but really mighty day facility for the homeless, but it's small. It can't hold a lot of people, so a lot of the homeless congregate outside the facility. Well, there are businesses and nice condos around, and they don't like that. And so there's a friction, if you will. But in my government, we took the 12 recommendations Dr. Marbut gave us, and we went to work on implementing those. We started with the families, the homeless families. We were able, in short order, to work with partners and get a facility for homeless families in the southern part of the county, in Northport, and two in the northern part of the county. In the northern part of the county, we have, I'm going to call it a triage facility for when the police finds a mom and children in their car in a parking lot. And they come into this facility and they stay probably a week, 10 days, and then they connect them, case managers connect them with services. Now, what this one agency, Harvest House, has done with that, they've taken it to where they are taking it to the next level. They are renovating 22 units of what was substandard housing and making that the next step for these families who come out of the triage, and they're going to have a few of those units for homeless veterans as well. But what they were able to do, you got agencies working together that didn't do that before. Everybody was in their own little corner of the community doing their own little thing. But agencies like Harvest House, Jewish Family and Children's Services, Catholic Charities, the Salvation Army, we were able to get these agencies to work together. Wow, that's a lot more than the local governments in Sarasota have been able to do. But through that effort, they developed a coordinated intake system using a singular assessment tool. They hired a case manager for the 211 system to manage calls from homeless residents. They coordinated a unified master case management system, and there are 7 nonprofit partners doing this. And the HMIS system was expanded so that all these agencies are hooked in so everybody can see what everybody's doing. Novel idea. I don't know why government hasn't picked up on this, but we haven't. In the first 9 months, this system allowed 42 families to move to permanent housing, and 16 of the families are in supportive housing, and another 169 families are being actively managed through case management services. Now, in my county, like Manatee County, we're having an issue with affordable housing for this population. What my commission is working on is putting together an advisory committee to look at affordable housing for this population and give us some ideas on how we need to fix it. We approved a petition for a housing development recently, and the developer agreed to give $3 million to Habitat for Humanity in North Sarasota to build homes in that part, because we have 2 habitats. We have North Sarasota and South Sarasota. But $3 million will build 20 homes, but that's 20 more than we've had. We have Harvey Vengroff in Sarasota that's doing some unheard of things with affordable housing for this population, and teaching the local government how to get its head out of the sand in this regard. And I'd be the first to admit, because I've been on the city commission and now on the county commission, it's an issue for us. It doesn't have to be, but it is. Affordable housing and ending homelessness. Our adult system of homelessness in Sarasota County, we've not been so fortunate as we have been with the families. The one sticking point has been a shelter for the homeless adults, the single homeless adults. The county wants to do it, but the city says, we don't want it in the city. Well, come on, folks. People are everywhere. I mean, you got to put it where people are and close to where the services are. We do have a meeting planned for November 6th with the city of Sarasota to see if we can get off this dime and move forward. I'm very hopeful that, as a matter of fact, I'm very prayerful that we'll be able to do that, because the fact still remains we have these residents in our community that don't have, for whatever reason, And we need to help them. We need to help them. Government can do what it wants when it wants. And having been on both sides, I know it to be true. We, in our administrative system, that has worked out really, really well, especially by converting 211 to that HMIS system. It's really effective. And I'm a commissioner that likes to get out and see what people are saying. I work with homeless families, with homeless individuals. I'm not afraid because I've been very close to being homeless myself. I had a roof over my head. I couldn't put food on my table. My children were adults and out of the house, but I couldn't. I wasn't an elected official. I was just a plain old Jane, or Carolyn in this case, but I couldn't make those ends meet. There are lots of people like that in this community. And I think the issue has to do with giving people a hand up, not a handout. I don't believe in handouts, but I do believe in hand-ups. My commission has partnered with our sheriff's office, and we have a pilot program that now is expanded to 20 beds, and it is called SHIFTS, SHIFTS. Sheriff's Housing Initiative Facilitating Transient Services. And we have partnered with the local housing provider, and it's a group home situation, but it focuses on those homeless individuals with mental health issues, but not mental health issues so great that they can't live in a group home setting. It has worked out very well. Is it perfect? No, because some people don't fit that mold. And I think what elected officials have to do is to develop a toolbox with a variety of tools in that toolbox to address the many complicated issues these citizens have. And they're ours. They're ours. They bleed red blood just like you and me. And so I believe that continually working together is what's going to get us to where we need to go. But when we can't get there working together, I think somebody has to be adult enough and human enough to strike out on their own and say, I'm going to do it. And I'm talking about the local governments. Thank you.
Okay, we're ready for questions from the audience now. Please use the microphone on the floor and state your name. You can start lining up, and I want to let you all know that Miss Commissioner Mason has to leave early in order to attend another meeting today. So we'd like to have any questions for her right at this time, so that she can, make her other meeting on time.
Hello, my name is Susie Copeland. I am a league member and president of the Manatee County NAACP. We're talking about city government. And Adele mentioned about the ESG grant from the city of Bradenton. When county commissioners, city council approve development of housing, can they not have a set aside for this particular population? That's the one question. And to the other two, what role can local churches play in the affordable housing or housing for our neighbors in need? We have buildings that are sitting vacant day and night. and it will take people off the streets, put a shelter over their head. They have facilities in there, stoves, kitchen, and bathroom facilities. So what role can churches play for our neighbors in need?
So set aside, Mrs. Copeland. So set-asides, define set-asides for me.
If a developer is going to build 100 housing, the city council or the county commission approves that. In the approval process, have 10 units set aside for the homeless population or for affordable housing that's defined clearly by HUD standards. I don't want to use local government standards.
The short answer to that is yes.
Thank you. So we as citizens, we need to put the county commissioners and city council's feet to the fire and demand that if they're going to approve some projects within our jurisdiction, they need to have some set-asides for people, our neighbors in need, or affordable housing.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them set-asides.
Well, I
Call it
come from
something
the old
different.
days. Set-asides is what I know is, it's housing set-asides, particularly for affordable housing.
That can be very easily done, and I want you all to remember this. And I probably don't have to tell the League of Women Voters that government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. You
Amen.
elect us, so you tell us what you want us to do.
Amen. I want Julie and Adele to answer about the churches.
Commissioner Mason has to leave to go to another meeting, so before we get to your answers, are there any other questions for Commissioner Mason?
I have one,
Okay.
please. My name's John, and Commissioner, I thought I picked up a sound bite a couple of weeks ago that the city of St. Petersburg, some group had completed a project of putting together a 50-room facility for the completely disenfranchised. And I was wondering if you had any information on that, whether
I've
I'm
never
wrong
heard
about
of
it?
it. I've never heard of it.
Anybody else? Thank you.
You're not talking about Pinellas Safe Harbor?
I thought I heard St. Petersburg, but if you have information on another location that they've done this,
There's a shelter in Pinellas County run by the sheriff.
no, I'm sure that's not what I heard.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bernita Franzel. I just want to call attention to a place where homeless people can go get free housing. They have their meals served, and they're protected, and that's the prison. And that many of the people who are homeless are there because they can't get jobs. They have to check a box that say that they have been in jail. They can't get public housing, that's forbidden. They can't get food stamps, and they are more or less ruled out of a normal life. And it seems to me that we should, for these people who are in prison, have treatment centers before they get to prison. Before they get to prison and a jail sentence because they have not turned the right way on the street, or they don't have their insurance in their car when they get stopped. There are so many people in prison, and these are young men, basically, who could function in society, and many of them have young families. We need to have some money put aside for treatment before they get in there.
I'd like to let you know that in the DOC program, it's called the Department of Corrections program, we receive funds from the state a per diem per night for the men who stay in that program. 6 years ago, I've worked for the Salvation Army for more than 23 years in different parts of the country. I came back here 6 years ago. This is my home. I grew up here. We had 30 beds that the state gave us a per diem for. We had 30 beds for those men coming out of prison to help rehabilitate them. As of 2 weeks ago, the money was cut from the state. You want to know how many beds I have now? 4. So that part of state money has been cut. So just know that there are programs there, but we need to let government know how important they are and how important it is to help people and to rehabilitate those men who are coming out of prison. And yes, they do have difficulty because they are a felon, finding a place to live and getting a job. But believe it or not, we do find places like if you eat at Bob Evans. If you eat at Bob Evans, they will hire some of our people to work. So there are places out there who will hire them. They're a little hard to find sometimes, but just know that you need to let your state government know that that's a fund that should not have been cut.
Yes, we should support that instead of having our taxes go to the prisons.
Before we move to the next question, could you all answer Ms. Copeland's question about engaging the churches to help with this issue?
I think that's a very good question because there are different segments of society besides just government being the answer to everything. And I have real hopes in Manatee County for what's being called the Faith-Based Alliance. This is a group that has been able to form and have representation from all of those major stakeholders. And I'm hoping that as it grows, that housing will become the focus of that group because I think it has a lot of opportunities. I'll just give you an idea of something that could happen. For instance, I know a church that has 4 units. These are all units that would house our ESG clients, but the units need some fixing up. They need some new windows, they need some repair in order to bring them up to livability standards. So could this faith-based group take that on? Absolutely. So I think there are lots of ways of when we first had the big recession and a lot of houses were always sitting there empty, I got calls every week from people saying, why can't we use these houses? Why can't we get some of these houses that are out there and abandoned? And it sounds like a great idea till you start looking into the complexity of this. And yes, I still think that's an opportunity for us, but as the land prices go up and as the cost of getting some of these units, it goes up, it's more and more difficult. So I think that the churches have a major role to play, but they have to accept that responsibility. They have to see that as something that they're doing for the community, for their congregations, for the individuals. And I think the one thing that I always put this out there, and I'm not putting it out there because I don't want to do it, but what we need is we need a leader. We need a leader, we need a group, we need an individual, or we need an organization in Manatee County that their focus is on developing housing for this kind of population. And as long as there's not somebody willing to do that, it doesn't get done. So it's either government, private, churches, whatever, but we need a group, just like they're forming an advisory council in Sarasota County, that's what we need here. Or have an advisory council that encompasses both counties, because we both have the same problem, and come forth with recommendations, because there's money out there. There's money at the state level to be able to develop rehab housing, but you have to know what you're doing. You have to have a plan. You have to have a strategy. And Turning Points is just not capable of doing that too. Our plate is full. It's over full in some ways. And so we really are looking for that person or group or entity to come forth and really organize us to be able to do these things. And I think it's definitely doable, but that's just one of those, it takes a village things, it takes the churches, it takes the government, it takes private entities.
I guess my question was a piggyback on your explanation. I'm from northern New Jersey. We had the Council of Churches, and we helped the homeless families, and all the churches took turns in working and spending nights with the families in one of the larger churches, which had a recreation hall that was large enough for the families. And I think you have Council of Churches here, and they should start working on developing a program like this. And every church had a committee, and we took turns in working and spending the night with the families. And it worked very well, or anyone else who wanted to go. And we were like chaperones, and we had a policeman there also to watch. I'm Charlotte Scarborough.
Thank you, Charlotte. And actually, Manatee County and currently Sarasota County has a very active Family Promise program, and that's kind of what it's called. In Manatee County, we had a Family Promise program. They have 12 core churches, and then they had, I think, up to 36 churches that were not just the places. But what we found is they were very selective about who they take into their program, and they really could only help about 14 people at a time because of the capabilities of the churches that were taking them. So it was a limited. That's great for the people that they helped, but ongoing, people felt that their resources were better directed to places that were helping more people, and they lost their core of support from the churches. So we no longer have a Family Promise program in Manatee County, but they do have a very vibrant program in Sarasota County, and it still is operating.
I was wondering what you all think of some innovative programs that are being tried elsewhere, where they take these shipping, what they call them, shipping units, and convert them into locals, just shelters. Nothing you would want to live in forever, but just basic shelters, cubicles and that kind of thing. Has there been any suggestions like that moving forward in our area?
I've been a part of several groups, and we do look at those scenarios. But again, and they're great, and especially in bigger cities where they're being used. I mean, they even take. You're talking about like a 500 square foot place for people to live. I mean, they look awesome. I'd live there if it was just me. But the problem, once again, is that you're not going to place them anywhere in the city. I can tell you that. And the other thing is that you'd have to find a spot in the county that the county agreed to this particular type of housing. It would be it would be a dream, and we can all pray for it. If we had a developer that would come into Manatee County and that did have the resources to buy some land and to build something like that for us, it would be great. Because then there are organizations such as Turning Point, Salvation Army, and other organizations that can provide support to that. Salvation Army, we don't want to be landlords. We're not in the landlord business. If any of you are in here and landlords, you know the headache that it can be. And so we're here to help the people, but we don't particularly want to be landlords. So if you have a uncle somewhere around the world who wants to help where you're living, this would be a great place for. There's a lot of great places in the county that I believe that we could put together something like that to help. But right now we just don't. You have to have a developer who wants to come in and commit to that population and to doing that.
Right after Hurricane Katrina, they came up with several different kinds of small housing units that were beautiful. They were like little chattel houses. They cost $24,000, and I think they were hurricane resistant to 220 220-mile-per-hour winds. So that was the kind of call I got, and was, why can't we have these built for the homeless people in Manatee County? So I think, again, there's options out there. What has really worked in a lot of other areas is Housing First, which is the struggle that you see in Sarasota County, is the philosophy between Housing First and having a shelter. But in fact, my opinion is that we need both. We have such a large group that is being challenged, that you have so many different needs and they need different kinds of housing. There is no one kind of housing that's going to answer the need for all of this population. And so different communities come up with different ideas on how to house them. But I can tell you in Manatee County, and one of the things that has been most successful in communities is identifying who your high flyers are. Who are those people that use your police department, your sheriff's office, your hospital, all of those resources, your social service agencies? You identify your top 20 people, and you look at the kind of housing that they need. And then you try and put them into that kind of housing. The money that you save from not having to provide services to them, and it's not at all uncommon for them to use over $1 million each every year for all of the services they need, you can use to put them into housing. Yes, it's a big philosophical difference on how you do that, but once people, and I'm talking about communities, have done that, they've been able to cut back the numbers of people that require all those services, and those people do have a place to stay then. You're talking about permanent supportive housing. You don't just put people in there and say, good luck, but they've got services, case management, everything to make sure that they can be as successful as they possibly can. And I would just like to say, I could probably list you 9 or 10 of those people right now. We have people who are mentally ill living on our streets. They're at risk every day of being beaten up or even killed because they have mental illness that makes it very difficult to relate to them. They'll come into our facility, they'll be fine, and something triggers them, and they are crazy. They are destructive to both themselves and the people around. So we have had to ban them from our property. So now we are banning these people who we're the only person that they come to for some of these services. And they're out there on the street. And a lot of them are mentally ill. So if we could at least get together to develop housing for those top 20 people, that gives us a place to start and still work on all those other people too.
My name is Leslie Jacobs, and I have one comment, and I think Florida is one of the cruelest states for the underemployed, the poor, the children who can't even get health care, who are living in cars, and that until we as a society impress upon our elected officials at every single level what a horrible problem some of our neighbors are literally facing every day. But this is a problem, I believe, that should be addressed in a systemic approach by society. For instance, New York City has a Department of the Homelessness. That's all they do. We don't have anything like that in either Manatee or Sarasota. At least the Sarasota County Commissioners are doing something systemically to try to help their population. So I just think we as the league and everyone here should just make sure people get out and vote and make sure that we all talk to our elected officials about how horrifying this problem is. And now I have 2 dumb questions, 2 easy questions. One for Adele. I want to know why it is you didn't do the age groups, the age range in, let's say, 10-year age range or 5-year, because you've lumped together the 25 to 44 as a huge, huge chunk, and the same thing for the 45 to 64. I'm just the kind of OCD person who'd like to see it broken down a little more accurately.
Well, the easy answer is that I didn't do that. It's our Homeless Management Information System, which is run
that's
by
what
Suncoast Partner-
HMIS is.
HMIS is
Okay.
Homeless Management Information System, and both Manatee and Sarasota County, we put all of our data into this one database, which is managed by the Suncoast Partnership. So these are actually HUD required boxes. So that's how HUD has broken it out on the questionnaire when they come in.
Okay, thank you. And the last sort of easy question is, in the Salvation Army shelters, and maybe in the One Stop Center, don't you get any fathers with children?
Yes, we do, and it's really sad because there is no place in Manatee County with fathers with children to go. Because in our men's shelter, because of the population that we serve, we can't mix children in that particular population. So there is a need in Manatee County for a shelter just for men that have children. We do serve we can serve the whole family, but the mother and children can stay in the family shelter, and then the gentleman will stay in the men's shelter. But it's still it's a help to them, but it's still a hardship when you have to split the family up like that. It still can be very difficult for the family.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bill Orr. Just had a question. You were talking about the families that live in a car and they get their kids ready and take them to school and they live in the car. I was curious to how many kids in the county are like that, and what do the schools do to help them?
Well, for the last probably 4 or 5 years, there's a program that's run by Manatee County School District called Project Heart, and they work with identifying kids in the school district that are homeless. And for the last 4 or 5 years, we've identified almost more than 2,000 every year. So that's a lot of kids. That's not 2,000 that are homeless for the whole year, but it's 2,000 that are single, unduplicated, and sometime during the year they were homeless. Now, I hate that question in a way because really, if you're looking at the real numbers, those are just families that have children in the school district. And when you look at the numbers of young women we come in with kids, and they don't have school-age children yet, I would say that number's up another 25–30% above that. So you would be shocked to know how many women live in their car with their children.
Okay, our time is about up for the day, so let's give a big hand to our wonderful speakers. They have given us so much information and so much to think about. I want to thank the Bradenton Women's Club for allowing us to use their hall for our program, and also METV for taping it for later showing. So if you know somebody who wanted to come to this but couldn't make it, just direct them to www.metvweb.com, and it should be posted in about a week so they can watch the show full length on their computer, or also shown on METV's television stations. And our next program will be on October, oops, wait a minute. Yeah, we'll be on, I got November the 12th here. Let me see if that's right. Sorry about that. November the 9th. Monday, November the 9th, and it'll be on restoring the right to vote. A lot of convicted felons they've completed their terms and all the requirements of their probation, but they still can't vote. So we're going to have speakers, Darrell Roussan, who's one of the state representatives, and also a couple other representatives of this issue. So we're hoping you can make that one. And also regarding the homelessness issue, we are going to be going on a tour of the One Stop Center on Wednesday, December the 9th. So if you would like to go on that, just grab one of our newsletters here and it'll tell you who to contact, which is me. So you can get on the list of people to go on that. It'll be, yeah. Okay. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming today. And thanks again for our speakers.